This video is going to be very useful for those of you that don't really know how to evaluate whether you're improving at your training or not. Hi everyone, and welcome to this new video where we're going to talk about how you can monitor your improvement in your training. More specifically, in this video we're going to talk about how you can evaluate if your current approach is really being effective at helping you improving your ability to recognize chord progressions by ear. Before going on with this video, I really suggest you take a look at another video you might be interested in, which is how to recognize chord progressions by ear, where we explain the main concepts behind how the use your ear method deals with recognizing chord progressions by ear. You will find the link to that video up here or in the description section below. First of all, why I'm making a video like this? Because I think that a lot of people are actually practicing a lot of exercises, a lot of ear training exercises from different methods, different approaches. They might be practicing interval exercises or other ear training exercises that are not really interval based. And they might be wondering if these exercises are really helping them improve in the areas they want to improve in. Because the number one goal of ear training is always to help you develop skills that you can actually use easily and effortlessly in a real music environment where you have to react in real time and be able to perform your training tasks flawlessly, effortlessly, and very quickly. Or it's better to say instinctively. For example, being able to recognize melodies by ear, being able to recognize chord progressions by ear, improve their improvisation skills or their intonation skills. I think that a lot of your training exercises are not really like real music. This means that maybe you're practicing intervals, but as you've probably noticed, interval exercises don't really sound as a real melody. Similarly, other exercises that might be used to improve your chord progression recognition skills or your chord recognition skills don't really sound like real chord progressions. So you might be practicing chord quality recognition exercises where you, for example, have to identify if a chord is major, minor, dominant seventh, major seventh, and whatsoever. And you still are not really recognizing a chord progression. You are recognizing a single chord and you're recognizing the quality of that chord. You're not training yourself to recognize which exact chord it is. You're just training yourself to recognize if it's major, minor, or whatsoever. This is quite a different skill than recognizing which chord it is exactly. So a very important thing when you're training yourself on any possible matter is that you want to be able to monitor your improvement and be able to see that you're really moving forward and getting closer to your goal. This is not really something that it's talked about in the ear training world, and that's why I'm making this video, so you can have some tips and tricks to use in order to effectively monitor your improvement, so you can better evaluate whether you are actually improving in the skills you want to be better at, which are maybe being able to recognize a chord progression by ear just by listening to it without the instrument, or maybe recognize a melody without the instrument, or maybe be able to improvise better, more effectively, and be able to play more in tune, to sing in tune, etc. So here we are. This is a brief to-do list of the things I think you should do in order to properly understand whether you're actually improving at recognizing chord progressions or not. So the first thing you should do is download the files that you can find in the description section of this video. We've prepared for you a folder including a few chord progressions recognition exercises. So these chord progressions are really structured in a way that sounds like real music. These are not super advanced chord progressions. They are tonal chord progressions, so they include chords that belong to one single key. And this is one of the features that makes them sound like real music, because most of the songs you probably listen to are based in one single key, and all the chords that are included in that song are probably belonging to one single key. And of course there are exceptions. For example, if you listen to jazz or to some classical music, you will hear a lot of chords that are outside the key, a lot of key changes. But for the most popular musical genres, usually chords in a song belong to one single key, with a few exceptions. So going back to these chord progressions exercises, the first step is to download the exercises and try to transcribe the chords included in there by ear without the help of any musical instruments. I know this task could be very demanding for most of you, but this is a test indeed. It's not like how you should practice. Of course, since we want to develop relative pitch skills, you will have to write down the chords in numbers. This means that you don't have to actually write down the actual chord, but you just have to write down the degree of the chord. So as you're going to see in the answers file, there will be some degrees, some numbers like 1, 5, 4, 3. Each one of these numbers represent a specific chord. More specifically, they represent the degree that the chord assumes within the key. And this is how we can recognize chords very quickly by using relative pitch skills. We always refer to a key, a tonality, which in this case will be the major key, because all of these progressions are played in a major key. So if you see 1 in the answers file, that means that the tonic chord is played there. If you see 5, it means that the 5th degree chord is played there, 2, the 2nd degree chord, etc. So the goal of these exercises, which again are used as a test in this case, not as real exercises that aim to help you improve your skills, will be to listen to the chord progressions and then write down the degree of each chord included in the progression. So you have 5 audio files, so 5 chord progressions in total. I suggest you listen to each progression about 3 times and then you write down the degrees. If you can't recognize the degrees of the chords, that's fine. Just try to give your best guess, because again, this is a test. So once you're finished and you've written the answer to all of the 5 chord progressions included in the folder, you open the answers file and check how many correct answers versus wrong answers you got. Then you mark down the number of correct answers and the number of wrong answers. So let me briefly explain why these first steps are very important. If you do all that I've just said, you're basically able to have a picture of your skills at this time. So the number of correct answers versus wrong answers represent an accurate picture of your current chord progressions recognition skills. And that's what matters right now. So the next step is very simple. You just go ahead and practice your training with the approach you're currently using for about 1 month. This means that you should be, of course, consistent using the same method for about 1 month. This is because after 1 month of practice, if the method is being helpful and effective, you should be able to see a noticeable improvement in your skill. As you might have already seen, we've published a few videos a couple weeks ago about showing our students' results and our students' improvement, both in recognizing chords, recognizing melodies, and also in their short-term musical memory skills. If you haven't seen the videos where we show our students' improvement yet, I really suggest you take a look at them. You can find the link up here or in the description section below. And as you can see from those videos, it's pretty clear that their improvement was gradual. And if you just take a look at the time frame, we show videos after 1 month of practice, 2-3 months of practice, sometimes 5 months of practice. And you can see that basically a time span of a month is enough to see a noticeable improvement, especially in chord progression recognition skills, if you are really adopting an effective approach. So if you're not seeing any noticeable improvement over the course of 1 month, chances are that you're adopting an ineffective approach, or maybe that you're just practicing exercises that are too difficult for your current level. So that's why I suggest you to practice your training using the approach you want to evaluate for about 1 month. You can even do 2 months if you want, but 1 month is usually enough. And then after that, you repeat the test again. So basically you take the same audio files and you go through them again. You take 3 listening for each chord progression and you then write down the degree of each chord. Again, if the task is still too difficult, which might be the case, you can just take your best guess and then go check the answers file and you see how many correct versus wrong answers you got. Lastly, pretty straightforward, you just compare the results you got in the first test to the results that you got in your final test. And of course, if your training approach you were using for the 1 month of practice was effective, you should be able to see a clear improvement in your final test. This means that you should definitely see many more correct answers in the second test, in the final test, compared to the first initial test. You can then go ahead and practice another month and repeat the test again, and then practice another month and repeat the retest again, and so on. So this is a very useful way to track your improvement in a really scientific way, which is what we want to do in your training, because these are skills that are not easily measurable otherwise. So we need to have a system in place that helps us track our progress. This is a way in which you can do that. Of course, you can take the same concept and apply it to other areas of your training and even other matters, topic, etc. So everything should be pretty much clear about how to monitor your improvement in chord progression recognition skills. But I want to clarify two very important things that you should not do if you don't want to spoil the test. The first thing, I've already talked about it, is to avoid using any instruments when practicing the chord progression recognition exercises. You should be able to recognize chords by ear without the help of any instruments. So this is the first important thing. The second important thing is to avoid listening to the progressions so many times that you end up memorizing them, or maybe practicing the progressions often or every few days. If you do this, if you practice these chord progressions repeatedly, you will likely end up memorizing the answers, or maybe like part of the answers. And this is inevitably going to spoil the test, because during the second test, you will have partially memorized the progressions. Of course, you don't want to do that if you want to have a reliable test. So that's why you should listen to the progressions for a maximum of 3 times, and then you should not listen to them ever again until you do the second test. Otherwise, again, you will likely memorize some parts and you will inevitably cheat during the second test. So I think that's all for this video, and please, if you have any suggestions on the content you'd like to see from us, if you have any questions about your training that we can discuss in a video, please leave a comment about that below, and we'll be very happy to understand how we can help you further in your training journey with the content that we're going to create for this channel. Lastly, I suggest you have a look at our website, our courses, our free trainings. All the relevant links are included in the description section of this video. Please leave a like if you like the content, subscribe to the channel if you want, and I thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!